You read that right. You read that correctly. The government is trying to now tell you what to do with your bodies. Thank you to the whistleblower who leaked this information. You are a true man or woman of the people. I want you to know that I will be linking the full article in the description below, but let's jump right in. The Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights draft opinion shows. We will hold that Roe and Casey must be overturned, Justice Alito writes in an initial majority draft circulation inside the court. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico. The draft opinion is a full-throttled, unflinching repudiation of the 1973 decision which guaranteed federal constitutional protection of abortion rights and a subsequent 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito states. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes in the document. Labeled as the opinion of the court, it is time to heed the Constitution and return to the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. First, several issues wrong with this. Your timing. We're in a global pandemic. This is literally the worst time to make such a change. Secondly, why repeal a federally constitutional protected right to then give it to our elected representatives? That's going to be even worse, because then we're going to have some states where abortion is free, some states where abortions are restricted, some states where abortion is outright banned. The issue with all of that, there's several things within banning abortion which just causes outright chaos. And I want to give a brief example. Let's say a young girl is sexually assaulted at a party, right? This young girl finds out that she's pregnant, she was impregnated by her assaulter, and you're going to tell me just because she's now pregnant, she's going to be forced to carry this baby, even though she was sexually assaulted. Right. Let me give you another example. Let's say we have two minors, right? Let's say they're both about 17 years old, about to graduate high school, yada, yada, yada. They both, have relations, and the girl comes up pregnant. Mind you, these are two children. These are two children who are not financially ready to have a kid, who are not mentally prepared for the undertaking of raising a child. On top of that, these are two individuals who've yet to begin life to even understand what kind of tools they have at their disposal. And I mean mentally and just physically. How would they prepare themselves for having a child? You know what I'm saying? So already there are issues if we're just talking about outright banning. Now, we fall into like one of the more, I would say, moral kind of issues where it's more like person to person kind of thing. Are you for abortion? What's your religion? Things like that. That's more of a society kind of thing. So what are your beliefs and things of that nature? And those aren't really too dire, especially within the time that we live in. You know what I mean? If you're for abortion, if you're against abortion, where you fall on the scale of morality, that's all subjective to the individual, right? Now I want to continue with the document, with the article. And also the full draft is here on this article. Deliberations on controversial cases have in the past been fluid. Justices can and sometimes do change their votes as draft opinions circulate, and major decisions can be subject to multiple drafts and vote trading, sometimes until just days before a decision is unveiled. The court's holding will not be final until it's published, likely in the next 2 months. 2 months. This document was released at like the beginning of the month. The immediate impact of the ruling as drafted in February would be to end a half-century guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion rights and allow each state to decide whether to restrict or outright ban abortion. It's unclear if there have been any subsequent changes to the draft. Whoa. So they've been working on this for months, and they're most likely going to make a decision in the next 2 months. This is all kinds of, wow, whoa. You know what this makes me think of? This makes me think now we need to place restrictions on how far the government can go. And honestly, to tie all of this back to a moral thing, how can the government make such decisions, even though they're technically not outright banning abortion? How can they make such a decision to repeal it, giving everyone free protection, and then saying, well, you could now be banned from possibly just having an abortion? There's several issues I feel that this case has brought forward within the American society on how our legal system and really just our government in general needs to be fixed. Because there's so many small, intricate legalities, especially with the first example, like a young lady sexually assaulted. Like, are there going to be stipulations for something of that nature? You know, are there going to be stipulations for children? Are there going to be what we currently have, where we have essentially like a 3-trimester rule? Within the first trimester, there's really no blocks against abortions, right? Then you fall into the latter half of the pregnancy time frame, so the second and third trimester, and then those have their own sets of, well, you're in the last trimester, you possibly won't be able to get an abortion, and the second one, I don't really know. I just have a question. Did they think about the ramifications that this may have on the society as a whole, right? Again, we're currently going through a pandemic. Everything is going up in cost. I'm certain at this point, diapers are like $80. Them shits are already expensive. So you're going to tell me, with shipping constraints, the rising of all foods and services and just everything across the board, you're going to tell me now, this is a great time for us to challenge abortions. Because this falls not only within reproductive rights, but this is a challenge to the medical system, because people go to the hospital for abortions, things like that. This challenges places like Planned Parenthood, where they mainly focus on really women and women's health and things like that. But when you ban them in these states, how much money are these companies losing to then service the American people? On top of that, when you challenge abortion rights, you're also putting people in a place where they possibly can't provide the best life for a child. The future of this society is not being thought about when such a rule like this is trying to be appealed. And here's why. Let's say today, me and a young lady meet. I personally do not feel that I am in a situation where I am able to financially take care of a wife and a child. So you're going to tell me, let's say I live in a state where abortion is banned. I am now forced to be a father, and she is now forced to be a mother, when we both are on the same point of view where it's like, hey, neither one of us are ready to take care of a child. So you're going to force being a parent on people who aren't ready to properly take care of a child and don't have the means to give that child the best possible future. It doesn't mean if the child were to come, they can't have a good life or things like that. But the simple fact that parenthood is now being forced on people, this is a great way to begin destroying the economy. This is a great way to destroy the future of America. And I feel as if we have representatives who we have justices and people within these systems who don't really understand the ramifications of the choice that they're making. And they're trying to force their own narrative on, what the future of America is going to look like. My thing is, when you have people who are about 75 to about 60, right? Roe versus Wade has been around for less than 50 years. So 9 times out of 10, these are all individuals who benefited from such a federal protection, a constitutional right. These are people who most likely went into a situation with somebody, whether it was an ex-partner, maybe they had an affair, something of that nature, or, they were just being an adult, had sex, and now a life is in the midst. And now that you're trying to remove this right from the American people to decide decide their futures, because that's essentially what you're doing as well. You're not only putting the fate of a literal newborn, a new citizen of America, in the hands of the government, but you're also putting millions of people within their fate as well, because you're possibly forcing pregnancies on people. It doesn't take a 30-year-old man to understand, if you repeal abortions, right, and you're going to force pregnancies on the American citizens, because that's essentially what it is to a degree, you line up the economy, you line up the American people for failure. Because if I can't choose when I'm prepared to have a child, because that's kind of what contraception is. Women now have the ability to choose when a child's born into this earth. You're taking this right away from them. Now we're kind of just stuck with an extreme boom in population, and I think maybe this could be a thing where they're trying to possibly prop up the child support system. But abortions do benefit men and women alike. Like I was giving in the example with the minors, they both could sit down and decide, hey, neither one of us are ready for this. Maybe we should get an abortion or something like that, where we go in together and we go through the process and we call it a day. Who knows what could happen from that situation? Those two could go off and get married and possibly have kids 5 years later when they're prepared to do so. The government's really taking the ability for the people to choose what their futures will look like if such a decision is made where they're going to force pregnancies on individuals. I really hope that, this message is spread around and people really hear this and begin to come up with their own possible ideas on what the long-term ramifications of this could be. But I don't believe that we should be letting anyone over the age of 60 should be a Supreme Court justice. This is an extreme example of why are older people running a society that they will not likely experience within the next half a decade. Because guess what? Their kids are going to experience it. Their grandkids are going to experience it. Those great grandkids could possibly experience it before something is done. No draft decision in the modern history of the court has been disclosed publicly while a case is still pending, obviously. The fuck? The unprecedented revelation is bound to intensify the debate over what was already the most controversial case on the docket this term. And it damn sure is the most controversial thing, because it makes no sense. It just really makes no sense how you guys are trying to decide the fate of America as a whole. And I can say that with the utmost certainty. You're going to sit here and tell me my sisters are possibly not going to have a right to when they can bear a child? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, you're really going to tell me my sister can possibly say, hey, I am not ready to have a child. I now have to go out into the world and birth his child, even though they both aren't ready? That makes no sense, guys. And it's not only them, millions of other couples who are going to have to experience such turmoil. But hopefully something good comes out of this. Hopefully this falls flat right on its fucking face. Please, please, please share this around. Text it to your friends. We really need somebody to get this around where some kind of petition could be made. Whatever choice they make, if it's going to repeal the Roe versus Wade case, that it could be stopped dead in its tracks. Long-term ramifications, man. But thank you for tuning in to Damaged. You guys have a good one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Damn, bro, this is crazy.